Okay, I didn't wear my lavalier mic today, so I hope the sound quality is okay. I'm making a jig so that my auger angle will be at a specific angle for the leg insertion. You can make the legs in any angle you want to. It all depends on how far they are going to be inside the bench and how far they're going to be sticking out. I arbitrarily chose 10 degrees as my leg angle. I don't want them protruding too far out of the bench, but I do want the bench to be stable, and leg angle helps with stability. So the way that I am marking my angle is, for one, I measured my slab and decided that my legs are going to be 7 10/16 inches apart from one another. So this one's going to get taken off. My angle is going to be from here. I've already cut this side. So I'm going to use this as my square edge. That's the end of my board, essentially. Now, the square shows the pivot is right here. Okay. Now, along the outside edge are the marked angles. They go from 0 in increments of 5. Well, they show 5, 15, 25, 35, but hash marks in between. So I decided that I want to do 10. So what I'm going to do is, if the 5 is right here, 15's here. So I think that comes out as 10, 5, 10, 15. Yep. 10 is going to be right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the square and pivot the square until 10 degrees is right here at the edge of my board. And this angle here is going to be where I cut for my auger angle. So I'll go ahead and get that cut now. Okay. So if I've done that right, then I have 15 degrees on each angle, and my auger, when I use my hand auger, is going to be up against that. And hopefully I'll get a stable angle for the legs. Clearly, the slab I have is not square, and nor do I want it to be. But in order for me to get good measurements and get the legs even distances apart, what I did was I just used a square to draw square lines on the surface of the log. And from those, okay, I drew those already. From those, I measured and determined where the holes for the legs are going to be. So now I'm going to go ahead and put my jig on. And this is the first time that I've ever done something like that. I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to secure it. So let me see. Okay. All right, well, that is, so I realize that I've made a mistake in my measuring. Why? Because my auger is 1 inch and sits 1 inch away from where I actually wanted the holes to be. And I forgot to take that into consideration. So I have to go and cut 1 inch off my board. Okay. I had to make a jig for the jig because my jig kept falling off the log. So I hope this one works better. May change. Yeah, you know, I'm just gonna move this over here, this side. All right. We'll go from here. I'm gonna knock this in some more and we'll get cranking. Well, my jig worked like a charm, so hopefully that ends up being a good angle for the legs. So 2 legs in, 2 legs to go. Now I've got the tabletop out here. I'm going to give it a sanding. I'm also going to sand the legs. What I'm going to be using first for the underside of the table is just some sanding sponges. I've got 400, 600, and 800, but in all likelihood, for the bottom of the table, I'm just going to be using the 400 because I don't really need it to be perfectly smooth. But since I charred it in the very beginning, in order to kill all the insects and stuff that were in there, I just want to get some of that charcoal off. So we're going to go and do that now. I'm going to turn the table around so you can see some of the details on the underneath. Here. And so one of the reasons why I don't come in with any coarser, or I don't care about any finer of a grit on the sandpaper, is because I want for the character in the wood to show up. It's got wormholes in it, it's got all kinds of little protrusions and uneven parts that really are full of character. So I don't want it to give anybody splinters if they touch it, and I just want it to be smooth of anything that catches skin. But for the most part, I want to preserve the natural details that are in this. The finer sandpaper doesn't, so I should elaborate. The finer sandpaper does not take out those divots and cracks and stuff like that. It just smooths them out so that they don't grab the skin. If I were to use anything really coarse, I would then smooth out all those little cracks and divots and stuff like that, and it would end up just kind of looking sterile, more like a factory piece of furniture rather than something that was truly natural, alive, and crafted. The ends of it, I'm just leaving alone. They're, they were cut with a chainsaw. They've got grooves and stuff like that. I think that's pretty cool, so I'm not even going to touch it. And this will get a coat of oil just to preserve and make colors, because believe it or not, even underneath the char, you will see the grain, but the oil will pop it all out. So that'll be real nice. Okay, I just feel it for skin grabby type things. Okay. So I'm pretty good with that. Before I move on to the legs, I'm gonna go ahead. I think I breathed in some of the dust. I'm gonna go ahead and flip it over and start working on the tabletop. So I deviate from my everything by hand notion for the sanding part of it because it's just going to take too long. I'm going to use my rotary tool. Sorry, random orbital sander. Now, some of the craftspeople out there will be using hand planes. Some will be using cabinet scrapers. I still think that because I want to preserve as much of the character in the wood as I can, that scraping it and taking big layers off of it will be a mistake, at least for my aesthetic. So I want it to be smooth. In the end, I will oil it and wax it. I'll show that to you. It's an oil beeswax mixture. But I don't want to scrape it, and I don't want to plane it. It will be very, very smooth. It will be shiny, the end product, but I want to keep character in here. So I'm gonna sand it. I'm gonna take it through different courses of grits. I'm gonna start with 60. 60 is gonna take out, this has truly been rough sawn, and it's got a lot of hanging threads on it that I need to take off. So 60 will remove those. Then I'm gonna go through and do a 120 and a 220, and then I'm gonna come in with the 400, 600, and 800. So in the end, it's gonna be a very smooth tabletop. So we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, I just wanted to show this. So this is after one round of the 60 grit with the random orbital sander, and you see all the grooves and stuff like that from the chainsaw. Now, I'm not going to necessarily want to get rid of the grooves themselves, but I do want to keep this surface smooth and take off the loose fibers. But this is what it looks like on the 60 grit, and then just for comparison, that's how it was originally. All right, so obviously you can't have a table with it looking like that, but I'm gonna go ahead and just keep working on this with the 60 grit for a while before I change over to the finer grits. But I wanted to do that comparison for you. So this is after the table has gone through a round of 60 grit, okay? It still has those saw marks on them, right? And it's still kind of rough. So, but this is kind of what I love about it. And so I'm just gonna go through with the finer grits and just make sure that nothing here grabs fingers, because it's really very smooth. But over time it'll get rougher. So I'm just gonna go through the extra grits, and we'll see the differences. I'll get some close-ups. See that? And even though, where's my finger? It looks rough, it really isn't very rough to the touch. Yep. I should also clarify that I don't own a hand planer. I just don't. So I couldn't even use one if I wanted to. I also don't believe that there are steadfast rules, and I also believe that if you're going to be a crafts person, that crafts like any other art, are highly, highly subjective and highly individual. And so I may not come out here and be scraping this thing and making everything level and square and all kinds of stuff, but that's okay. I'm not doing that out of laziness. I'm doing that because I actually enjoy the process and I actually like the end product aesthetic. That's just mine. You guys do what you please. My tools consist of what you see here. Every once in a while I do look for planers on the used market. I still think they're too expensive. Some of these Stanley planers, even on the used market, are going upwards of $125 a piece. Sometimes you can find one for $40, but honestly, I don't have time or patience to sit there and refurbish an ancient piece of equipment just so I can say that I've got it. And nah, not interested. I'll work with what I have, and I'm enjoying it. So, yep, that's my spiel. All right, we'll get back to sanding this thing. Okay, with the random orbital sander, I've hit this with 60 grit, 120 grit, and 220 grit. And it actually is super, super smooth to the touch and still retains the chainsaw marks. At this point, I'm going to switch to the sanding sponges. And do that. The sanding sponges are 400, 600, 800. Oh my God, super, super silky to the touch. Fantastic. So smooth. It's so pleasurable to touch that. All right, so just see that even though this has been taken through 61, 22, 20, 400, 600, 800, we still retain these grooves from the chainsaw, which I'm perfectly happy with. And when you run your finger over it, you just don't even know they're there. Now, for the final touch, because I'm just not going to be able to wait out of anticipation, I am going to put a coat of oil on this and show you how I burnish it. I burnish it the same way that I burnish my spoons. I probably won't put a coat of wax on it today. I still have a lot of work to do with legs and fitting in stuff, so I don't want to have to scratch it and do those kinds of things twice. But I'm really, really pleased with the sanding job. Yes. Okay. The material I use to oil my wood with is the tried and true brand Danish oil. It's polymerized linseed oil, so it's food safe, 100%. Provides great protection, pretty strong durability, and a great shine. And combined with burnishing, it looks great. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply a coat of this. Got to finish off this nearly empty can, and then we'll see about opening up the new one. Yeah, I don't have that much left in here. And I just apply it with my hands. It's not a big deal. It's just, it's a seed oil. I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest out of this can. Gonna help that. Yeah, I'm gonna need a lot more than that. That end stuff was a little gunky, I gotta say, but it'll be all right. All right, we'll open up the other one. Where did my screwdriver go? With the linseed beeswax version of this, I forget what Tried and True calls it, but for that I will use applicators, but for this stuff I'll just use my fingers. Really want to get it heavily into the crevices and the oil, the wormholes and stuff like that, so it coats the inside of those holes, I guess, maybe so they don't rot over time. I don't know if they will or not, honestly. Alright, so then we just rub it in. Look at that walnut. Man, that is something. I'll use this on the bottom. I'll also use it. My entire coffee table will be sealed with this linseed oil. All right, we've got that covered up. Look how much different the black walnut looks when it's got a coat of oil on it. Oh, it's gorgeous. Okay, now this right here is my handy dandy burnishing tool. It's just a river stone, and I use it for my spoons, spatulas, anything that I coat with oil. I will basically just run this over the surface. See that I've got some cracks here that I want to put some more oil in. This will not be the only coat of oil I put, but maybe the only coat of just the oil, because the linseed wax stuff is pretty good. This stuff, I just want to make sure this stuff gets into all the nooks and crannies of the bench. Obviously, we're not going to do the underside right now because I've got to let this sit. And I don't worry about the ends. I'm not going to do the ends. I've got pine needles falling into my oil. Thanks, fall. You should probably do this process inside the shed. That ought to do it. That's it for burnishing. Now the oil just needs to dry. I think I might get something to just rub off the excess oil, and that'll do it with the table for now.